Are you serious right now? She's calling 911 because of a parked Lamborghini? That was the first thought that ran through my mind as I stood on the curb, still holding the keys in my hand, not even finished with my first walk around. The car had been delivered 10 minutes earlier, and before I could take a single proper photo for my brother, this woman came storming down the sidewalk like she owned the entire neighborhood. Spoiler alert, in her mind, she did. If you're watching this and have ever dealt with a Karen, you already know. But if not, buckle up. And while you're here, hit that like, share this chaos with a friend, and subscribe for more stories that prove real life beats fiction every single time. It started at 4:42 p.m. on a Tuesday. I had just parked my newly purchased Lamborghini Huracan Evo on the street in front of my late uncle's house, which I had inherited a month earlier. The car was a gift to myself, the result of 10 years of brutal work in the tech world, exits, taxes, burnouts, and finally breathing room. It was loud, yes, flashy, sure, but I'd earned it and I parked legally. No blocking driveways, no music, no engine revs, just parked. That didn't stop her. She appeared like a glitch in the Matrix, suddenly just there. Mid-50s, white bob haircut, oversized sunglasses despite the cloud cover, yoga pants that had never seen a studio, and a voice that could scrape the paint off a mailbox. Excuse me, what are you doing here?" I turned slowly, confused. "Is this your vehicle?" she barked, eyes darting from my car to my face to her phone screen. I nodded casually. "Yes, just got it delivered." She narrowed her eyes like I'd confessed to a felony. "This is a private neighborhood. You can't just park expensive vehicles here. This is Crestwood Commons, not Hollywood Boulevard." I raised an eyebrow. "It's my house. I live here." Her nostrils flared. "That's impossible. The Johnsons own this home for 27 years. They didn't mention selling." "They didn't," I said calmly. "Mr. Johnson was my uncle. He passed last month. I inherited the property." It was like I'd slapped her. She took a half step back, looked me up and down like she was scanning for a criminal record, then, without another word, turned away and tapped her phone. I could hear her, plain as day. "Yes, 911? I'm being intimidated by a man standing next to a suspicious vehicle." "Yes, a Lamborghini. No, I don't feel safe. He said he lives here, but no, I don't recognize him. Please send someone right away." By the time she turned back around, she had on that smug expression Karens wear when they think they've won. I stood completely still, arms at my sides, saying nothing. I didn't need to. She added for good measure, "I've got him on camera, and he's standing way too close to my property line." Within 6 minutes, 2 patrol cars rolled into the neighborhood. Lights on, no sirens. Both officers got out slowly, hands resting near their belts but not aggressive. The younger one looked bored already. The older one, well, he seemed to know Karen personally. She waved at them like she called in a lunch order. "There he is," she shouted. "That's him. That's the man who threatened me." The younger cop approached me. "Sir, may I ask you to step over here with me?" "Of course," I said. I handed over my ID, which still had my old address. But I also had the title deed to the house printed and in my glove box. I'd been updating utilities all week, knew better than to show up unprepared. Meanwhile, Karen was holding court on the sidewalk, repeating her version of events to a small crowd of neighbors that had slowly gathered like seagulls at a fish market. "He screamed at me," she said dramatically, "told me to get lost, and then got aggressive when I mentioned the HOA rules." That was a lie. The cop returned my ID. "You say this is your property?" "Yeah," I replied, "and I can prove it." I walked to the passenger side, popped the glove box, and handed him the deed. He read it, glanced back at Karen, who was now filming the whole scene on her phone, and gave me a nod. "Looks good," he said. "You're fine. You're well within your rights to park here." Karen marched over, pushing past the other officer. "Wait, what? You're just going to let him stay?" The older cop sighed. "Ma'am, he owns the house. He's allowed to park his vehicle there." Karen wasn't having it. But, but look at the car. That's not normal for this community. It's intimidating. My son saw it and thought there was a drug dealer on the block." I almost laughed. The officer didn't. "Ma'am, having a nice car isn't a crime." She gasped like he'd cursed her out. "But it should be. People like him come in and ruin neighborhoods. Lower property values, flashy, loud. This is a respectable place. People like him." Oh, she said it. She really said it. I didn't flinch. I just took out my phone and started recording. "Are you filming me?" "Sure am." "I didn't give you permission. We're on public property." She screamed in frustration and stomped off, still filming, yelling something about calling the HOA immediately. The cops exchanged a glance. The younger one shook his head and walked off. The older one turned to me quietly. "Sorry about her. She does this. A lot." I nodded. "Thanks for your time." He paused. "You sure you want to live here?" I smirked. "Not just live. Invest." He raised an eyebrow but didn't ask. Just got in his cruiser and left. I turned back to the house. The car gleamed in the soft light. A few neighbors lingered, watching, some curious, some awkward. But Karen was nowhere in sight. Not yet, but she was far from done. The next morning, I woke up to a folded envelope shoved halfway through my mailbox, sealed with a crooked HOA logo sticker and taped shut like it contained nuclear launch codes. Notice of non-compliance. That's how it started. Bold, all caps, and underlined in red ink. Below, a bulleted list of infractions that sounded like something out of a dystopian novel. Unauthorized luxury vehicle visible from public road. Excessive visual disruption caused by paint color contrast of said vehicle. Potential safety concern due to public attention drawn by said vehicle. Failure to pre-register property update with the HOA Transition Committee. What was that last one even supposed to mean? I stood there on my porch, barefoot, coffee in one hand, rereading it with the same expression you'd give a raccoon trying to pick a lock. Down the street, the morning was waking up. Kids waiting for the bus, sprinklers clicking, someone walking a golden doodle in a stroller. And then I saw her, Karen, standing diagonally across the street behind a privacy bush, wearing a visor and holding a phone like a sniper rifle, just staring. I raised my cup and gave her a polite nod. She spun on her heel like I'd shot a laser at her. 10 minutes later, a second envelope appeared, hand-delivered by a man I later learned was Karen's cousin, or director of compliance, as she called him. He knocked once, left the paper on the porch, and speed-walked away like I might ask him a question. This one had a more urgent tone. Urgent action required community harmonization meeting. That night, 7 p.m. at the HOA hall. Mandatory attendance for all homeowners in violation. The notice wasn't just about me. It listed only one name. Me. It was a show trial waiting to happen. I made 2 phone calls. One to my lawyer and the second to Sophie. "You got your camera ready?" I asked. "Always," she said. The HOA hall sat like an abandoned chapel at the edge of the subdivision. White vinyl siding and windows too small for the size of the building. By 6:55 p.m., it was packed. Not just board members, but neighbors. Some curious, some hungry for drama, a few pretending to be on their phones, but clearly here to see me squirm. I walked in with Sophie beside me. She had a discreet lapel mic pinned to her collar, hidden under her denim jacket. At the front stood a folding table draped in a maroon tablecloth with a printed sign, Crestwood Commons HOA emergency session. In the center sat Karen, flanked by two men who looked like they'd been bribed with coupons to be there. She didn't say a word as I approached, just handed me a clipboard with a waiver attached. "Before we begin," she said, "you'll need to sign this. It acknowledges that your presence tonight constitutes an agreement to abide by HOA decisions." I read it, then looked up. "This says I waive my right to legal recourse." "Standard language," she said sweetly. I set the clipboard on the table. "Yeah, no thanks." Gasps echoed behind me like I'd punched a nun. Karen's smile didn't move, but her eye twitched. "Then I'm afraid we can't proceed." "I'm afraid you already did," I said, and pulled out a printed document of my own. "Notice of attempted HOA overreach and unauthorized enforcement actions, pending legal review." She blinked. "Excuse me. You filed a complaint against a vehicle I legally own, on property I legally possess, using language that suggests profiling and discriminatory enforcement." Karen's voice rose half a tone. "This is a community. We have standards. Do those standards apply only to people with approved car colors?" That got a ripple of murmurs. She slapped a folder onto the table. "Mr. Harper is in violation of multiple codes," she said, "including disruption of neighborhood harmony, intimidation by appearance, and social media incitement." Sophie looked up. "Did she just say appearance?" I said nothing. Just pulled out my phone and projected the HOA bylaws on the nearby screen. Page 47, Section 9.12. Vehicles may be parked on the street provided they are registered, insured, and do not obstruct access. "Show me where it says anything about car type," I asked. Karen's mouth opened, and then slowly closed again. The room fell into that tense silence where everyone was pretending not to take sides but desperately calculating where to land. And then she said it. "Sometimes rules are unwritten." And there it was, the sentence that would be her undoing. "You heard that?" Sophie whispered. "Got it. Loud and clear." Karen stood. "This meeting is adjourned. We will pursue action through formal channels." She turned, snatched her folder, and stormed off stage, but not before pointing a finger back at me. "You'll regret bringing that car here." She meant it as a threat. To me, it sounded like a challenge. The next 48 hours felt like a chess match I hadn't asked for, but was fully prepared to win. First move, Karen launched a smear campaign. By Thursday morning, the Crestwood Commons Facebook group, normally reserved for lost cats, garage sales, and passive-aggressive arguments about trash bins, was ablaze. "Does anyone know anything about the man with the Lamborghini on Cypress Lane? Just moved in, already causing disruption. Looks like a drug dealer. Just saying. Those cars attract the wrong kind of attention. We moved here for peace." Sophie read them out loud over breakfast. "Here's my favorite," she said, scrolling. "He told me he inherited the house, but I don't believe it. Probably a squatter. People like that don't belong in gated communities." "People like that," I repeated quietly. Again. "Want me to respond?" "No," I said. "I want you to archive everything." She nodded and pulled out her laptop. Meanwhile, I submitted a request to formally review the HOA's bylaws and financial records, per the rights granted to all property owners under state law. The response? Denied, with no explanation, which only made me dig deeper. Karen's entire regime rested on fear, but fear loses power when it's exposed. I contacted neighbors directly, casual, friendly, non-confrontational. Tom Carter, house 3 doors down, offered me a beer and 5 years' worth of HOA frustration. "She fined me $150 for putting a basketball hoop in the driveway," he said. "Said it was a safety hazard. My kid's 7. Margaret Evans, who lived next to the playground, told me in a hushed voice, "I pay my dues early every year and still get notices about my porch chairs not matching." You'd think I was harboring fugitives. Another neighbor, retired, former military, confessed Karen had once tried to report his American flag as unauthorized signage. It all started to add up. That afternoon, I received a formal cease and desist letter from the HOA. Karen accused me of inciting harassment, damaging the reputation of board members, and, my favorite, weaponizing vehicle aesthetics to provoke community unrest. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my phone. Weaponizing aesthetics? I framed it, but I also knew this wasn't a joke. Karen was escalating, hoping to scare me into leaving or staying silent. It wasn't about the car. It never was. It was about power, territory, image. So I prepared my next move. Saturday afternoon, I paid a visit to the county records office and pulled the public documents for Crestwood Commons HOA, board structure, election records, amendments, financials. Guess what I found? Karen had served 3 consecutive terms as HOA president, despite the bylaws limiting it to 2 unless voted by a 2/3 supermajority. There was no record of any such vote. I had her. Sophie and I put together a file, clean and tight, screenshots of the social media campaign, copies of the fake infraction letters, the HOA bylaws, the cease and desist, testimonies from 3 neighbors, photos of my legally parked vehicle, public financial records, and we included one final touch. A certified letter from my lawyer stating we were prepared to escalate the matter to the HOA Oversight Board and, if necessary, initiate a class action complaint. The letter was delivered to the HOA office Monday morning. By Tuesday night, Karen was on fire. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean she stood in the middle of the HOA clubhouse parking lot, red-faced and breathless, waving papers in the air and yelling at no one in particular. I stayed in my car, parked 2 rows back, just watching. Sophie recorded from the passenger seat. "She's imploding," she whispered. Karen paced like a storm, ranting to 2 bewildered board members. A few neighbors watched from a distance, whispering. She pointed toward my direction multiple times. Her voice echoed even through the glass. "He's manipulating people. He's trying to take over. He wants control of the HOA. Control. No, Karen, I wanted peace. But I wasn't going to get it until she lost hers." The next morning, my phone buzzed. Anonymous tip via email. Attached, screenshots of Karen using HOA funds for consulting fees paid to her cousin. Also, invoices for beautification projects that never happened. And one receipt for surveillance enhancement equipment delivered not to HOA grounds, but her personal property. She was watching the neighborhood from her own house. It wasn't just paranoia, it was fact. I sent the file straight to my lawyer. Sophie looked up from her screen. "You're about to end her." "Not yet," I said. "She needs to go bigger first." She tilted her head. "Why?" "Because if she burns this place down herself, no one will defend the ashes." I didn't have to wait long. By Thursday morning, the HOA announced a special emergency assembly to discuss community stability. Translation, Karen was going on stage. The flyer was plastered at the community mailbox, slid under every door, and sent via group email, complete with a clip art police badge in the header and the words "Neighborhood Under Threat" in bold red font. You'd think I parked a tank instead of a supercar. I didn't RSVP, didn't post, didn't respond, but I planned to attend. The meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. sharp, and by 6:30, the lot outside the community center was full. Cars double parked. People stood in clumps, whispering, casting glances toward the front door like it was the scene of an impending crime. Inside, folding chairs were set in rows. HOA board members sat behind a long table at the front, and in the center, Karen, dressed in what I could only describe as dictator chic. A fitted navy blazer, starched collar, and enough fake medals pinned to the lapel to confuse someone into thinking she'd served a tour. Her clipboard was ready, so was I. I sat in the middle row, Sophie a seat behind me, phone angled just enough to record without drawing attention. Next to me was Tom Carter. He leaned in and muttered, "Brace yourself." She's in rare form tonight. Karen rose like she was being introduced at a UN summit. "Good evening, homeowners," she began, voice clear and sharp. We've gathered tonight to discuss an escalating concern, a recent presence that threatens not only our neighborhood's peace, but its values, safety, and image. She paused, waiting for gas. She got silence. Her smile twitched. Over the past week, several of you have expressed discomfort. Yes, discomfort, with the activities surrounding a certain vehicle. A Lamborghini whispers sparked around the room. It's not just the noise, she continued, voice rising theatrically. It's the message, the audacity, the entitlement, the intrusion. We must ask ourselves, is this the kind of energy we want in Crestwood Commons? I raised my hand. She froze. Yes, she said tightly. Are you referring to me? A few heads turned. Karen tilted her head. If the shoe fits. I wasn't aware owning a car was grounds for community exile. A few quiet chuckles broke through. Karen's voice sharpened. It's not about the car. It's about attitude, about respect, about following the rules. Such as, she turned a shade pinker, such as maintaining visual harmony, avoiding attention-seeking behavior, not undermining the HOA. There it was, the real issue. I smiled, leaned back. Isn't undermining something only possible if that thing is standing on solid ground? The crowd caught the implication. Murmurs again. Karen snapped her clipboard shut. This is not open for debate. This is an official HOA matter. Then I moved to make it public, I said, standing. Let's open the books. Dead silence. I held up a folder. These are public documents, HOA budgets, meeting notes, invoices for projects that never happen, payments to your cousin labeled as consulting fees, surveillance equipment sent to your house. Karen's jaw tightened. Those were approved by the board. I turned toward the rest of the room. Anyone here remember voting to install cameras on Karen's private fence? Heads shook. Tom grunted. What about a $3,400 lawn beautification project that doesn't exist? Gasps now. Real ones. Karen stepped forward, voice cracking slightly. These are lies, fabricated by a man who doesn't understand community standards. Let's test that, I said, turning to the projector Sophie had synced to her laptop. On the screen, scanned documents, time-stamped footage, and the kicker, Karen, 2 years ago, caught on camera yelling at a teen for skateboarding too close to her yard. She'd called him vandal trash. Sophie clicked to the next slide. Election rules. Section 8.1. No more than 2 consecutive terms for president unless confirmed by 2/3 vote of total homeowners. We paused. Raise your hand if you recall such a vote, I said. Not a single hand lifted. Karen's eyes darted, calculating. People forget, she snapped. Not when their mail-in ballots were lost, Margaret Evans said suddenly. Her voice was shaky, but her spine was straight. Mine never counted. I moved to hold a recall vote, I said clearly. Effective immediately. Karen's voice was a shriek now. This is illegal. This is harassment. Tom Carter stood. You've been harassing this entire block for 5 years. Someone else called out, I got fined for a wind chime. The room turned into a thunderclap of stories, accusations, complaints long buried, now bubbling like lava under years of HOA rule. Karen shouted, pounded the table, tried to gavel the meeting back under control, but the gavel broke in her hand, and so did the illusion. Sophie leaned forward. She's losing control. I nodded. She never had it. She just had silence. Karen screamed, You think this is over? I will have you removed. She lunged toward the projector and ripped the cord free. Lights blinked. Silence. Then from the back of the room came a voice none of us expected. You're done, Brenda. The older officer from earlier, the same one who'd asked if I really wanted to live here, stepped forward. I've seen enough. Karen stared at him, speechless. Sit down, he said. And for the first time since I met her, she did. The meeting ended not with applause or shouting, but with something far more damning for Karen. Silence. Heavy, pointed silence. People began filing out in small clusters, whispering, some nodding to me, others still too stunned to react. The officer, his name was Brooks, I'd later learn, gave me a look that didn't need words. Keep your head down, but keep pushing. Karen sat at the front like a dethroned monarch, still gripping the broken projector cable like it was a lifeline. Sophie approached from the back, laptop tucked under her arm. Backup complete, she whispered. 4 cameras recorded everything. Live stream's already spreading. We didn't speak on the way home. Didn't need to. But when I parked the car in the same spot on Cypress Lane, the Lamborghini gleamed under the streetlight like a symbol she couldn't erase. Not with bylaws, not with fines, not even with lies. That night, Karen posted a 9-paragraph manifesto in the community group. It began with, "In the face of targeted aggression, I've remained calm, but I will not be silenced." It ended with, "Expect legal action. I will not let this neighborhood be hijacked by a trespasser with a sports car." She still called me a trespasser. After all that. Sophie laughed out loud reading it. She doesn't break, she shatters and keeps crawling. The next morning, HOA ballots were hand-delivered to every home. An emergency vote to confirm or remove Karen Sullivan as HOA president, effective immediately. Each envelope contained one sentence. You may vote anonymously. Your voice is protected. It was poetic. By Saturday, 91% had voted. By Sunday night, the results were in, removed. She didn't wait for a formal hearing, didn't issue a statement. She packed her SUV, peeled out of her driveway at 6:13 a.m. Monday morning, and drove away like the villain in the third act of a movie. Bitter, frantic, but irrelevant now. But that wasn't the end, not even close. Because that same afternoon, the county clerk's office responded to a complaint I hadn't even filed myself. Someone else beat me to it. They'd received credible allegations of embezzlement, tax fraud, and misuse of HOA funds tied to Karen Sullivan. They requested a statement. I provided everything: invoices, inconsistencies, screenshots, testimonies, bank routing numbers tied to her cousin's consulting firm. Sophie organized it like a prosecutor building a case. When we submitted the package, the clerk's office told us flatly, "You won't need to wait long." Later that week, I finally got a knock at the door I didn't expect. Margaret Evans, she looked nervous, holding a pie wrapped in foil. "I thought maybe, apple crumbles still acceptable in this HOA," she said, eyes flicking down the street. I smiled. "Very HOA compliant." She stepped in, glanced around, nodded. "It's peaceful in here. You helped make it that way." Her face changed, softened, but her eyes stayed hard. I should have spoken sooner, years ago, when she made Tom cry over his lawn, when she told my granddaughter that pink bikes weren't aesthetic. I was afraid of being fined, afraid of the isolation. But now, she set the pie down and met my eyes. She's not coming back. I'll make sure of it. We shook hands. Tom stopped by that night with 2 beers and no words. We just sat on the front porch, looking out at the now Karen-less street. The Lamborghini parked exactly where it had been. He raised the bottle once. To finally being able to breathe. The community shifted after that. Not overnight, but meaningfully. Neighbors waved instead of staring. People talked in driveways. Kids rode scooters freely. Someone hung string lights without getting a warning letter. The surveillance signs slowly came down. But the wildest moment? A week later, Sophie got a ping on her HOA email alert. A legal notice had been filed. Karen was officially under investigation for financial misconduct during her presidency, not just here, but in 2 other neighborhoods she'd previously served. The system had finally caught up, and in a folder on my desk were 2 thick binders, one labeled Karen Documentation, the other Future HOA Reform Proposals. Because I wasn't just the guy with the Lamborghini anymore. I was now the unofficial voice of every neighbor who'd ever been silenced. And I wasn't done talking. By the time the subpoenas arrived at the HOA office, Karen's name was already off the front gate. Literally. One of her last vanity projects as president had been installing a personalized community leadership plaque near the entrance, engraved with her full name under the words "Guarding Excellence." The plaque disappeared overnight. No one admitted to taking it. No one looked for it either. Instead, residents gathered for something Crestwood Commons hadn't seen in over a decade, an open forum without fear. Tom Carter, now interim board president, stood awkwardly in a folding chair circle on the community lawn, reading suggestions out loud. No more automatic fines without photographic evidence, he said. Anyone against? Nobody raised a hand. Another neighbor added, I think maybe we stop measuring grass with rulers? Laughter, the real kind. Sophie caught it all on video. It was becoming a series. From HOA to OMG, Karen's legacy and beyond. Meanwhile, news traveled. Local papers picked up the embezzlement story. Headlines like ex-HOA president accused of funding cameras with community fees and Lamborghini owner uncovers years of fraud started surfacing. One small blog even dubbed me the whistleblower in white leather. I wore a hoodie that day just to recalibrate. Then came the phone call that truly blew it open. It was from a woman named Janice Reyes. She lived 3 towns over. Quiet voice, soft tone. But when she spoke the name Karen Sullivan, it turned ice cold. She ran our HOA 3 years ago, Janice said. We tried to speak out. My husband lost his job because of rumors she started. She fined us until we sold at a loss. Janice had receipts, emails, false code violations, fake complaints she only now realized followed the same language Karen used here. The playbook was identical. I connected her with the county office. Then came 2 more emails, one from Arizona, one from Ohio. Turns out Crestwood was her 3rd act, and the ending was catching up to her. By now, Karen had gone completely dark online, deleted accounts, vanished from community pages, but not before one last explosion. It came on a quiet Sunday, late afternoon. Sophie and I were in the driveway, organizing donation boxes from the garage when her phone pinged. Karen just went live. I looked at her. She's what? Facebook, new burner account, concerned citizen watchdog. Sophie tapped the screen and put it on speaker. Karen's voice came through, shaky, furious, and just this side of unhinged. You've all been tricked, she snapped. That trespasser manipulated you with digital lies and doctored documents. The Lamborghini was a distraction. While you all drooled over sports cars, he planted poison in our systems. We froze. She's spiraling, Sophie whispered. I led this community, Karen continued, and I will not be erased. I will expose every single one of you who turned on me. Every betrayal, every backstab. You think you're safe under this new regime? She laughed, the brittle, broken kind. I still have my files. The stream cut off. I stared at the phone, then at Sophie. She just admitted to keeping files on people. She nodded. She wants to go nuclear. And she did. Within 48 hours, multiple residents received anonymous mail, photocopies of old HOA complaints, photos from security cams that had supposedly been deleted, even copies of background checks. Some legitimate, some clearly faked. It was all traced back to a rented P.O. box in Karen's name. This time, law enforcement stepped in directly. Harassment charges were added to the case. A temporary restraining order was issued, and neighbors were given a direct contact at the sheriff's office. The line had been crossed, but still she didn't stop. On Friday evening, I got home from a meeting and found something wedged in my front gate. A single garden gnome. Ceramic, hand-painted, but with the words, "Trespasser lives here," scrawled across its chest in red marker. Sophie stared at it. She's gone from tyranny to arts and crafts. But that wasn't the part that chilled me. It was the note underneath, written in all caps. I warned you. I don't forgive. I don't forget. I didn't laugh. I called Officer Brooks. He arrived 10 minutes later. When he saw the gnome, he let out a long sigh. She's unraveling, he muttered. She's going to get herself arrested if she keeps this up. I looked at him. She's already past that point. He looked back. Then maybe it's time we finish this. The decision to finish it didn't come from anger. It came from resolve. I'd watched Karen spiral from clipboard tyrant to full-blown threat, and I wasn't about to wait for her next performance piece to include fire, glass, or someone's safety. Officer Brooks gave me the number of a state-level HOA oversight investigator. By the next morning, Sophie and I were on a Zoom call laying it all out. The illegal election terms, the fraudulent invoices, the surveillance abuses, and now the retaliatory campaign against residents, complete with ceramic gnome intimidation. The agent didn't even blink. "We've had her flagged since April," he said calmly. "We just didn't have enough grounds to move without formal community statements." Sophie leaned into her mic. "You have them now. You have video, testimonies, everything." "Then she's done," he said. But Karen wasn't planning to go quietly. That same evening, Margaret Evans came knocking again, this time pale, holding her phone like it was radioactive. "She sent me this." It was an edited photo, clearly manipulated. A screenshot of Margaret sitting beside me at the HOA forum, with the caption, "Co-conspirator in fraudulent transfer of property, pending legal review." It had been emailed from an anonymous account and CC'd to multiple HOA members. Sophie took one look and swore under her breath, "She's trying to frame people now." But Karen miscalculated one thing. She wasn't the only one who could use tools. Sophie uploaded every email header to a tracking service, mapped the IP, cross-referenced it with login metadata from previous group chats, and narrowed the sender to a cheap hotel Wi-Fi server 3 towns over. We made the call. Brooks drove out with a state investigator. They found Karen in the motel's second-floor room, laptop open, email drafts loaded, USB drives on the bed. She was arrested without resistance. The next morning, the official notice hit Crestwood Commons inboxes like a thunderclap. To all residents, Karen Sullivan, former HOA president, has been taken into custody pending multiple charges including financial fraud, harassment, illegal surveillance, and tampering with public records. A formal investigation has commenced. Residents impacted are encouraged to submit statements. The email closed with one sentence: "Silence enabled the abuse. Your voice now repairs it." That weekend, something remarkable happened. Neighbors gathered, unprompted, unorganized, just present. Tom brought folding chairs. Margaret baked another pie. Even the quiet couple from the corner lot showed up with plastic cups and lemonade. No one gave a speech. We just sat together. For the first time in years, it felt like a neighborhood, not a hostage zone. Late into the night, Sophie turned to me, voice low. She really thought no one would fight back. She'd built a kingdom on fear, I said, and hoped no one would ever notice the cracks. "But you did," I nodded, watching the soft glow of porch lights flicker like stars down the lane. "And now everyone sees through them." Moving day felt different this time. Not rushed, not anxious, not under surveillance. Just clean air, sunlight, and neighbors waving instead of whispering. Sophie stood in the driveway, directing movers like a tiny general, clipboard in one hand, coffee in the other. "Front room first," she told the guys. "That's where we're mounting the post-Karen war map." They laughed. So did I. A kid zipped past us on a scooter. A golden retriever barked in rhythm with wind chimes. 2 dads compared barbecue techniques near an open trunk of grilling tools. Peace was possible here, finally. That night, we threw a housewarming party. No HOA forms, no wristbands, no approved hours. Just open doors, real music, and laughter that didn't flinch at the sound of an approaching car. I grilled. Sophie DJ'd. Tom brought beer in a cooler shaped like a toolbox. Margaret brought the same apple crumble, but this time, without apology. And then it happened. A new car rolled into the cul-de-sac. Black, modest, clean. Out stepped a woman, mid-40s, business casual, calm eyes. She held a clipboard, but not like a weapon, like a checklist. Everyone went quiet. She smiled gently. "Sorry to interrupt," she said. "My name's Dana Morales. I'm from the County HOA Review Board. I've been appointed interim compliance coordinator for Crestwood Commons until the community elects a permanent one." Murmurs, some nervous, some skeptical. Dana raised her hand. "I'm not here to fine anyone," she said with a soft grin. "Quite the opposite. I'm here to listen. That's my job for the next 60 days. We'll review every previous violation, reverse any that were improperly issued, and meet every resident, one by one, face to face. That's not a threat. It's a promise. Silence, then applause. Quiet at first, then louder. Then everyone joined in. Tom handed her a drink. Margaret invited her to sit. She did. I watched it all from the edge of the yard. Sophie leaned in. You realize what you did, right? What? You burned down her regime and planted a whole new system in the same soil. I looked out at the street. No patrol carts, no flyers, no clipboards weaponized by insecurity. Just people, living. But even in peace, history leaves a trail. A week later, Sophie dropped a folder on my dining table. From the investigation, she said, thought you'd want to see. Inside were records from Karen's previous HOAs, photos, scanned minutes, statements from neighbors just like ours. Dozens of people silenced, fined, shamed, and then one final page, a resignation letter, typed, unsent. To whom it may concern, I tried to build something stable, but I was never trusted, not once. No one ever respected the rules. No one respected me. So I made them. If I scared them, at least they listened. What would I be without control? Nothing. Karen Sullivan. Sophie exhaled. It's like she wrote her own indictment. No, I said. She wrote her own eulogy. We said nothing for a while. Then she smiled. You ever going to move that car into the garage? I looked out the window. The Lamborghini still sat there. Proud, untouched, unticketed. Nope, I said. It belongs right where she hated it most. So here's the question. For anyone watching this who's ever dealt with a Karen, an HOA tyrant, or any authority figure who forgot what community is supposed to mean, what's your 3-minute nightmare? Or better, what's your 30-minute comeback? Drop it in the comments. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that no one rules by fear forever. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe. Because as Crestwood Commons learned the hard way, every queen falls eventually, especially the self-crowned kind.